Sound check, 1, 2. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Built Heritage Committee meeting of June 10th, 2025. I'd like to call the members to order. This hybrid meeting is being facilitated through Zoom and is being held on the traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, the original custodians of the unceded land in which the city of Ottawa is located. We extend our respect to all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people for their valuable past and present contributions to this land. Since this committee meeting is being streamed live on the Ottawa City Council YouTube channel, I'd like to remind participants to please keep your microphones muted until I call upon you to speak. For those participating here in the committee room, please use the microphone in front of you and keep your computer muted. I will provide each committee member with the opportunity to ask questions or comment on each item in the order in which they raise their hand in Zoom. For panelists, the raise hand option is found at the bottom of the participants list. For those calling in, please press *9 to raise your hand. The committee coordinator and I will be watching for those cues. Members are also reminded to submit any motions, visual supports, or declarations of interest in writing to the coordinator at their earliest opportunity. Although the deadlines have passed for residents to register to speak and provide written submissions to this committee, residents can still make written submissions to council. A reminder that if participants are having technical issues with their Zoom connection, they may call in using the backup telephone number provided by the coordinator. Colleagues, for today's meeting, I've received no regrets. I'll ask the coordinator to call the roll.
Member Quinn.
Present.
Member Madigan.
Present.
Member Legault.
Present.
Member Bournes. Councillor Troster.
Here.
Councillor Leeper.
Here.
Councillor Kelly. Vice Chair Pont.
EC.
Chair King.
Here. Thank you so much. So we have quorum. Our first item is the declarations of interests. I don't see anybody declaring any declarations of interest. So our next item is confirmation of minutes for May 13th, 2025. Are those minutes confirmed? Confirmed. Thank you so much. Our first item, and we'll be proceeding with a consent agenda today. Our first item is Centertown Heritage Facade Improvement Pilot Program. We will hold that item for presentations. Our next item is application for alteration to 254 Argyle Avenue, a property designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act. There are no delegations. There was no correspondence. The applicants on behalf of the sorry. Okay, so we will hold that item. Thank you so much. The next item is designation of the former Drummond Presbyterian Church at 2027 Robertson Road under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Once again, for this item, there is no delegations. We did receive some correspondence. We do have Heritage Ottawa registered to speak potentially. I just wanted to ask Linda Hode whether she would want to speak if this item was carried on consent. Okay. So is there a desire for a presentation, or can this item pass on consent?
Carried.
Carried. Thank you so much. The next item is a designation of 119 Osgood Street. There is a technical motion as well as delegations, so we will hold that item. And the final item is the designation of the Wellesley building at 1235 Wellington Street West under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and we will hold that item for delegations. So we'll go back to the top of our agenda and receive a presentation from staff on the Centertown Heritage Facade Improvement Pilot Program.
Good morning, Chair. Just while we're waiting for the slides to come up, I just wanted to introduce my colleague, Mark Young, who's the Program Manager for the Public Realm and Urban Design Branch within Right-of-Way Heritage and Urban Design. We've been partnering with his group on this project, so he's here to help support us today, but says please don't ask him any questions.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair King, Vice Chair Plant, and committee members. Today I will be giving a brief presentation on staff's recommendation to approve the creation of the Centertown Heritage Facade Improvement Pilot Program. Next slide, please. To provide some context, this recommendation stems from the areas within the Centertown and Bank Street Heritage Conservation Districts being identified as key areas for improvement within the Centertown Street Safety and Revitalization Action Plan. This action plan outlines the collaboration between city staff and Bloomberg Associates to take measured action toward enhancing Centertown's main streets, which is to begin this summer. The goal is to advance 4 core themes for Centertown revitalization: a place that is inviting, green, vibrant, and safe for all. This recommendation also comes from Section 4.5 of the City of Ottawa's official plan, which notes that the city will create and maintain financial incentive programs to support the rehabilitation of designated heritage properties. Heritage staff and public realm and urban design staff have been working closely on this recommendation. Next slide, please. While a heritage property grant program already exists, the need for additional investment on Bank and Somerset Streets has been identified through the city's ongoing work on downtown revitalization. Therefore, a separate targeted program that offers more financial aid is being proposed as a pilot. The key objectives of this new program would be to encourage private investment in the revitalization of the Bank Street corridor, strengthen the historic character by providing additional funding to an expanded scope of projects, empower property owners to meaningfully conserve heritage features while contributing to the vibrancy of this historic main street. Next slide, please. The goals of the program will coincide with the overarching objectives and types of eligible projects. The 3 main goals are heritage conservation, beautification, and improved accessibility. So improving the visual attractiveness of storefronts to create a more inviting environment for customers and visitors, and to support upgrades that make properties more accessible for all users. Next slide. The pilot program will be offered to individually designated properties contributing in grade 1 through 3 properties within the Centertown and Bank Street Heritage Conservation Districts along Bank Street from Albert to Catherine, and then a part of Somerset Street. And so this map shows the boundaries of the program. Next slide. The program will support an array of heritage facade improvements, but in keeping with the goals, the types of eligible projects can generally be categorized into beautification and heritage conservation types projects. Beautification types projects will include signage, new lighting, removal of inappropriate building elements, and building improvements such as ramps and railings. Next slide. Heritage conservation projects include, but are not limited to, structural improvements, restoration of heritage attributes, reinstatement of missing attributes, masonry cleaning, and repainting when appropriate. Next slide. So staff are proposing that the funding formula be 75% of eligible costs up to $75,000, and that $500,000 from within existing city resources be allocated to this program for the overall budget. In terms of program operation, it will run similarly to that of the existing Heritage Property Grant Program and have the same application requirements. If approved at council, the program will run from summer of 2025 until the end of December of 2026, or until the budget is exhausted unless extended by City Council. And in terms of consultation, the ward councillor is aware of the report and its recommendation, as well as the Centertown BIA and Somerset Village BIA. And so next slide. In conclusion, staff are recommending that the BHC recommend that council approve the creation of the Centertown Heritage Facade Improvement Program and adopt a bylaw under section 39 and 45 of the OHA to create the grant program and establish the program requirements as outlined in the document of this report. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that excellent presentation. We do actually have a walk-on delegation. So I'll ask if Sabrina LeMay can come up and delegate to the committee. Thank you so much, and you have 5 minutes.
Good morning. We are very excited about this program. My name is Sabrina LeMay, and I'm representing the Centertown BIA as their executive director. I'm here today representing the entire membership the business owners and commercial property stakeholders who live, work, and invest in one of Ottawa's most historical and character-rich neighborhoods. Centertown is home of some of the city's most beautiful heritage buildings, many of which line Bank Street. These facades are more than just architecture. They are marks of time, culture, community, and identity. But over the past several years, our district has faced unprecedented challenges: a global pandemic, the occupation, the changing workscape as federal workers will never be back to the office as they once were. We have growing commercial vacancies and a shifting downtown dynamic that has left many businesses and property owners struggling to stay vibrant and visible. That's why the proposed Centertown Heritage Facade Improvement Program is timely and a necessary initiative. We strongly support the program because it reflects a deeper understanding that revitalization of our Main Street means investing in both the past and the future. This program empowers our community to breathe new life in a Centertown streetscape. It gives our members the tools they need to enhance the appearance, accessibility, and experience of their buildings, many of which have been long overdue for revitalization but remain out of reach financially. This program also speaks to the heart of the BIA's mission to foster a thriving, welcoming, and beautiful district that attracts residents, visitors, and long-term investment. Facade improvements may sound cosmetic, but they are a ripple effect and are profound. It increases pedestrian engagement, boosts foot traffic, instills pride in places, and sends messages that Centertown is open, alive, and worth investing in. Lastly, I think the most important piece of all of this is the ways in which it instills hope back into the neighborhood, filled with tired business owners, residents, and property owners alike. There's a lot of investment going into Centertown right now, and I believe each one of these steps creates a thriving place where people don't want to just shop, but they feel a sense of belonging. This is a neighborhood that may on the outside seem like it's not alluring right now, but bringing the vibrancy back is going to instill nothing but hope, creativity, and what we hope to see thriving again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your delegation, for your comments, and for your support of the pilot program. And also be remiss not to thank your merchants, who I know have been persevering under hard times. We want to obviously ensure their success, and I know everybody around the table wants to see that. You do have a question from Councillor Troster.
Sure. Hi, Sabrina. Thanks for being here. I want to thank you and the Centertown BIA and all the businesses, specifically on Bank Street, for everything you've been doing. I know it's been a really tough go. Can you speak to the number of empty storefronts on Bank Street right now that are unoccupied?
Yeah, right now we have 30.
Yeah.
30 vacancies. We've been actively working with property owners to try and fill those spaces as well. We've created a vacant space program. But right now, people don't want to open business in Centertown, which is why I think this is a really amazing program because, I was just speaking with Court and saying that, on the outside, it doesn't look like much, but there's so much happening on the inside. And I don't think there's a better time to invest in Centertown.
That's great. Something we hear a lot about, and certainly was in the news this week with the announcement of major construction at Somerset House, is the issue of demolition by neglect of heritage properties that fall into disrepair. Can you just speak to the impact that has on the vitality of a place like Bank Street?
I mean, we have residents reaching out to us regularly. We've even had different property owners looking for a space, and they don't want to open up in places that look that way. If they're vacant, it's not creating a sense of community. It looks empty, it looks abandoned, and feels unsafe. So I think it speaks volumes when it comes down to not only people not wanting to live there, open business, or even our current businesses that are working there.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad that this provides a shot of hope for Centertown, and there's some other initiatives rolling out really soon. So we hope to be able to package them together to talk about all the investment we're bringing.
We're really excited. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for your delegation. Oh, and I see that Councillor Leeper has his hand up. Okay.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lemay, for being here today, and council is ready to support you as we can to revitalize Centertown, and we're all pulling for you. You've probably had a chance to talk about this initiative with your board. Do you have some sense of how your members and property owners may wish to use the funds that are being made available?
Right now, it really comes down to safety. A lot of it is safety in terms of making the exterior of their businesses feel more safe, more appealing, to bring people in. That has been the conversation through all our membership.
Okay. Appearances matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your delegation. It's much appreciated.
Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. Now, questions to staff. Member boards.
I noticed the recommendation is that it cover categories 1, 2, and 3 properties. Can you explain what those categories are and who's left out?
Yes, through you, Chair. So in a heritage conservation district, the categorization is contributing and non-contributing. So if a property is contributing, it contributes to the cultural heritage value of the heritage conservation district, and it lies with the statement of cultural heritage value. So many properties along Bank Street are categorized in as a contributing property. Grade 1 through 3 is the same as a contributing property, but in that district, it's much earlier. So that was the categorization at that time. Thank you.
So is the recommendation incorrect? Should it change from categories 1 to 3?
I think the missing piece there is that there's 2 heritage conservation districts that are covered here. So the Centertown Heritage Conservation District, which has a brand new plan that was just passed in 2022, that has contributing and non-contributing are the 2 categories. So the contributing properties within the Centertown Heritage Conservation District are eligible. And then the Bank Street Heritage Conservation District, which is just north of the Centertown district, is a smaller district that has not yet had an updated plan. So it still has categorization of what's called 1, 2, 3, 4. The categories 1, 2, and 3 are equivalent to a contributing property. Category 4 is equivalent to a non-contributing property. So we've included contributing and 1, 2, and 3 just to make sure we cover everything. We're not excluding properties that should be eligible.
How would you go about processing an application? What kind of timeframes are we talking about? What process would be involved?
So if adopted at council, the application period will open immediately. So run from summer 2025 until winter of 2026. And the application will be first come, first serve. So if it is an eligible project of the list of eligible projects, it'll be first come, first serve, and we'll try to turn it around as quick as we can. They will enter into an agreement with the city and they will sign that, and then we will move forward with the project.
Timeframe, you didn't touch on the timeframe.
Application timeframe, turning it back out would probably be 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Leeper.
Thank you. The program has my full supports, and I hope as we get more buildings designated in Wellington Village, Hintonburg, Westboro, that a similar initiative would be made first, but let's get the buildings designated first. This funding is coming from the existing public realm intervention account. How much is in that fund and what would be left over?
We're going to refer this one to Mr. Curry.
Thanks for the question, Councillor. Yes, as Council is aware, we're currently going through our capital closure process. Sorry, you can't see me. There's a chair right in the way. I'll move one over. 6'2", but I still don't clear the chair. As we're closing out legacy accounts with our colleagues in finance, we were able to identify some dollars that were in one of our older public realm accounts. That money is earmarked by council for minor public realm interventions in our streets and our design priority areas. So this program fit hand in glove with that mandate of that capital account.
Absolutely perfect. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Councillor Leeper. Member Madigan.
Thank you, Chair. For this program, the funding is strictly for the actual renovation costs. Does it also include costs for consultants and trades?
It's just for the work itself. Thank you.
Okay, and one other question. Do you have to have the work completed within the same time frame as the available funding, or is there like a lenience period?
The timeline for the project would be 12 months from the signed agreement. There could be opportunity for extension, but that would be in extreme circumstances. The intent is that they complete that work within 12 months.
That's great. Like other councillors here, I fully support this program. It's a good initiative to move conservation forward and address a lot of comments from people who say they don't want designated buildings because it makes it harder to maintain. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Member Quinn.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a question. It's just a comment. I wanted to say that I congratulate staff on the concept and bringing this forward. I fully support it. It harkens back to a very successful program called Main Street Canada program that had very positive impact on a number of smaller towns and cities right across the country doing this very thing. And investing in our built heritage, these are assets that have demonstrated positive economic spin-offs. So congratulations again, and I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Member Quinn. I don't see any other hands raised. So briefly, I just wanted to echo those comments and other comments by colleagues. I really want to thank staff for the innovation here that we're seeing, both in conservation in terms of this project, innovation in financing in terms of finding the financial source to do this, as well as innovation in economic development, which I think mirrors the interests of the local BIA. This pilot project program really represents a strategic investment in Centertown's economic and cultural future. And by enhancing our successful heritage property grant program with targeted support for our most important commercial heritage areas, we're really demonstrating, I think, as a city, leadership in heritage conservation while supporting local business prosperity. I'm also heartened by the fact that we are really drawing upon many best practices from other jurisdictions. And I think that's very important to also note that similar programs have been run in Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary, Montreal, and Vancouver. And the expected outcomes are increased property tax revenues, reduced commercial vacancy rates, enhanced economic activity, and even tourism, strengthened civic identity and community pride, and the preservation of the historic character of our main streets, all things that we want to achieve as a city. So I really want to thank staff for their hard work on this specific item. And I wanted to ask the committee whether this item is carried. Carried. Thank you so much. So this report will be submitted to Ottawa City Council on June 25th, 2025. Our next item is application for alterations to 254 Argyle Avenue. We will have a presentation by staff.
Hey, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Built Heritage Committee. So today I'll be presenting on the application for alterations at 254 Argyle Avenue in the Centertown Heritage Conservation District. And next slide, please. So the subject property is located on the south side of Argyle Avenue in the Centertown HCD, east of Bank Street. It contains a 1.5-story red brick church constructed circa 1930, designed by architect James Strutt. Property is designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act as part of the Centertown HCD and is identified as a contributing property under the district plan. And next slide, please. Oh, pardon me, Novki. That was mixing up my architects. Okay, so this slide shows elevations of the proposal. So the applicant is proposing to construct a 9-story, 84-unit residential building. Portions of the north, east, and west facade of the existing church will be retained and incorporated as part of the building's podium. So the tower portion is proposed to be clad in a metal panel designed in a sort of basket weave pattern. And just to note, in addition to the heritage permit application in front of you today, this property is also subject to an active site plan and zoning bylaw amendment application to facilitate this proposal. And next slide, please. So this slide shows a site plan for the proposal. You can see the footprint of the building takes up much of the property and that the front vestibule of the retained facades have been moved closer to Argyle Avenue compared to the existing lawn that is on the subject site at the moment. And next slide, please. So this slide shows some ground level renderings of the proposal. The front entrance of the church will remain an operational front entrance, and the intent is to have a public use within that retained atrium space. The entire west wall of the existing building is retained, and you can see in the renderings on the right-hand side how it kind of wraps around the building there to the back. And next slide, please. In addition, we have some aerial renderings here of the front and back of the proposal. And once again, you can see how that east wall wraps around the proposed tower. And you can also note the separation of the church and the church spire to the tower towards the front there. And next slide, please. So in terms of conservation approach here, we have a twofold approach. So first, the existing church is proposed to be disassembled and partially reassembled in its new location. So the church will be taken apart, its materials cleaned, labeled, stored off-site, and then reassembled in place in the new location. So approximately a third of that west facade, the entirety of the front facade, and then the entirety of the east facade will be retained through this proposal. So in terms of how that came to be, the applicant provided a scenario analysis report completed by Remage Engineering in support of this application. That report detailed the structural challenges with other potential approaches to retain the facades. The actual sort of structural makeup of this building, it's constructed of these hollow structural clay tiles, or clay blocks, pardon me, with a brick facade attached. So some other common approaches like panelizing or taking apart or panelizing the walls or moving it in its entirety were determined to be very risky and structurally unsound. So in addition to the disassemble, reassemble approach, the applicant's also proposing to restore and reinstate the various facade elements noted on this slide. So such as the door, the spire, and the metal lanterns that are on the vestibule there. So a detailed conservation plan with a breakdown of this proposed work was submitted in support of this application, and it'll be referred to throughout the potential development process here. And next slide, please. So just here, you can see highlighted in dark red the actual extent of the retained walls on the northeast and west facades. So this image is the sort of 1A level. At the ground level, there's a number of window bays, which create some separation in the brick facade, but this is the full extent of brick that's retained throughout on that ground level. And next slide, please. Just looking at the Centertown HCD plan, there's a number of relevant sections here, including section 9, which looks at new construction, including a subsection speaking to the incorporation of existing buildings. So one of the key policies that the applicant worked to address through the design process was policy 9.2.1, which speaks to ensuring that the retention of existing buildings within the district is meaningful. That was achieved here through maintaining sort of a three-dimensional understanding of the building's form by establishing that wrap around the proposed tower and retaining a lot of those key elements, such as the roof form and the other facade elements like the lanterns, front entrance, etc. So overall, staff's opinion is that the proposal does conform to the policies and guidelines of the HCD plan. The building's meaningfully retained and the conservation approach is appropriate for the district. In addition, the design and materiality of the tower is contemporary and doesn't distract from the character of the HCD, and its built form and massing is appropriate. And next slide, please. In terms of consultation, standard notices were issued out to Heritage Ottawa and the Centertown Community Association. The CCA also did participate in pre-cons with DR staff and Heritage Planning staff on this file. Councillor Trosser has notified the application, and just to note, this application also, there was a front yard sign posted in accordance with our new notice policies, and notices were issued out to neighbors within 60 meters of the property. We did receive a comment from a neighboring property owner, which was attached to the report for this application. And next slide, please. In terms of recommendations, we are recommending that this be approved, subject to a number of conditions, and then other standard conditions also apply, such as delegating minor design changes to the program manager and issuing the permit with a 3-year expiry date. And next slide, please. And just finally, to touch on conditions. So this recommendation comes with a number of conditions to be cleared, generally in advance of building permit approval and in consultation with the applicant. So these include providing additional documentation of the existing building and depositing that with the City of Ottawa Archives, providing full comprehensive details of the facade reassembly process, providing a general dismantling and construction schedule with some project milestones for check-ins with staff, providing full material samples of the proposed materials for all of the different facade elements, and then finally providing financial securities through a letter of credit, which can be taken through either the site plan or the heritage permit process. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Questions to staff? Member Lawrence.
The proposal, I gather, is to disassemble the church and move it and reassemble it elsewhere. Do we have any idea as to what that cost would be?
At this point, I don't have a cost breakdown, but that will be part of the letter of credit process, is that the applicant will be provided to, or required to provide a cost breakdown to help generate the securities required.
Do we know whether it's $1 million or 2 million or 5 million, or do we have any concept?
I do not know what the possible cost will be for that.
I will speak to the item.
Member Madigan.
Thank you, Chair. For the building and site, was the front lawn with the, deep sort of green space considered part of the character of the conservation district?
Through the chair, so this was something that we did discuss quite a bit through the review process. This file's been around for approximately 2 years now, so there's been a lot of consultation and back and forth on it. Given the policies in the Centertown HCD plan, which speak to generally maintaining sort of a consistent streetscape, which involves, kind of common and consistent setbacks of residential and non-residential properties in the district's various streets, we were okay with permitting the moving forward of the church, given that that lawn was fairly unique in terms of the rest of the street and the rest of the remaining properties within the Centertown district. The argument presented by the applicant was also that pushing this forward does allow for better visibility of the building as part of this kind of larger proposal.
Thank you. I think there's a lot of pros and cons for the project. There's obviously a lot of investment in time to arrive at the design that we're seeing here. Appreciate all of the effort, but there's also an aspect of loss of maybe the character of that neighborhood and sort of that deep lawn, which might be considered part of like the community green space, which from the locations which had prominent green spaces that got lost from development, always a comment from the community that was a loss to the community itself. And the justification for moving, I understand the justification. Some is somewhat weak, I think, in my opinion, that alignments, because we're losing that original placement building. But overall, sort of balancing the needs of the city and heritage, it seems to be a good mix. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Leeper.
Thank you. And I'm thinking about the success that Bethany Hope was with respect to maintaining that that lot depth, which was described originally as part of the character, or the reason for designating it. So I have some sympathy for what Member Madigan is saying. My own question relates to the potential consequences for the owner if they disassemble and then don't build. In a couple of applications over the past year or 6 months, we've imposed financial penalties if they don't start constructing, if they don't get their building permit. And I think Councillor Trosser also had one where there's a requirement to put in place a community garden if they have a vacant lot after a certain amount of time. I am worried that the builder is going to dismantle, store, and then not construct. What are the odds that that is a scenario that may come to fruition?
We will be taking financial securities through the heritage permit, assuming council approves it, or through the site plan process that will cover the cost of the conservation work. So if there was an instance where that happened, the city would have the money on hold to reconstruct the property. I think we have to balance the issue of sort of protecting the city's interest in the building and the property from a heritage conservation perspective, and then also not putting so many requirements on an owner that it makes it difficult to develop the site. So staff feel comfortable with this approach. We've used it in other instances where we've taken financial securities at 180 Metcalf Street, at 126 York Street, which is under construction right now, 70 Nicholas, the former registry office next to the Rideau Center. So we have some precedent, 70 Richmond in your ward, Councillor, where we have precedent that sort of having the financial securities on hold kind of helps to spur people to move along, because that's
Yeah.
how they get their money back.
You answered Member Burns by saying you don't know how much it's going to cost to restore. So do we know what the relationship is between the securities that we're proposing to collect and what it would actually cost to reconstruct the building?
Yes, through the chair. So as part of the clearing of conditions, the applicant will have to provide a detailed cost breakdown for the work, which will be used to actually create the values for the letter of credit. So we will have that information. We just don't at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Member Legault.
Yes, hi. I was just wondering about, so I understand that it's going to be disassembled and then reassembled on the exterior, and that was clearly outlined. I'm wondering about the qualities of the interior space. From what I probably understand, there's very little designation of the actual interior space, but I wonder if any of that church-like setting will be retained.
So through the chair, you're correct that the interior of the church building is not designated under the Part 5 designation that applies to the area. We did have an opportunity to visit the site with the applicant and their team, and generally the interior of the church is largely kind of gutted out and dismantled. I do believe that there will be a bit of an atrium sort of setting created through the retention of that kind of vestibule and front portion of the church. So there will be some elements of that, but in terms of other church elements like pews or stained glass windows, et cetera, those aren't really present in this building.
And there are no interior finishes to retain?
Correct. None
because
that
it's been gutted. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Member Borns.
Thank you. My concern here is that there are many circumstances that we would want to try and protect in order to have a high rise in this area. One of them is heritage, and yet that seems to be the only one that we care about. The cost of low-income housing, for instance, the most obvious one, isn't a factor that we can consider in this particular case. So here, my guess is it's $2 million. So it could be 3 or 5 or 1 or whatever. But for that kind of money, we could purchase some units in the building. And we could actually have some low-income housing available in that neighborhood, which we currently don't, and which is currently not a consideration. Here we are talking about a building that's 1930s, demolishing it and reconstructing it in a new location. I think it's not worth doing, and that we should leave the property alone and look at other options for gathering some low-income housing, for instance, or some open space, as was discussed. Either way, it would provide an improved benefit over saving a 1930s building that doesn't fit into the neighborhood particularly well.
Thank you for your comments. Councillor Troster.
Hi, Brian. I just wanted to respond to your comments because I agree with you that we need more affordable housing in the neighborhood. Something I would mention is that there are actually a number of developers in the area who are building, who have taken advantage of the city's new affordable housing community improvement plan. And I've been working with them to try to connect them with nonprofits to ensure that those nominally affordable we would call them market affordable units, are able to deepen their affordability by working with nonprofits. An example, not in the immediate neighborhood, but the ZB development has Ottawa community housing on some specific floors, and it's starting to work really well. Short of expropriating, we don't have a tool to force this developer to create affordable housing on site. And we know that affordable housing is best created by nonprofit affordable developers that have it affordable forever. But in terms of incentives for private market affordable housing, there has been a lot of uptick on the community improvement plan. And my office also held a lunch and learn with Operation Come Home that has a block leasing program for youth aging out of foster care. And they're also able to add extra subsidies to these market affordable units. And there was a lot of uptick from developers, specifically actually ones in the museum district, who will be building in the next few years. So I just wanted to let you know there is some hope. Whether I like this development or not, or think it should happen, ultimately it's privately owned. And as we saw with Somerset House, for example, it's very limited what we can do to compel someone to develop their property in a specific way if it's privately owned as opposed to a public nonprofit. So, but I appreciate your perspective very much.
Thank you so much, Member Madigan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to respond to the question about or comment about the value of retaining this, I think it is a valuable building to retain. It's by Nofke, one of the prominent architects of that period. It's part of his evolution of development as an architect. Things are getting missed. I've worked on a number of Nofke buildings, and one can see there's an evolution of thinking of how he designs, but also the technology he's using in his buildings. One can debate quite often about the costs of conservation versus the cost of that building and like the facades. Does it have to have an elaborate facade? It's an effort to make a nice facade. Perhaps it could be simplified to save money. There's probably other mechanisms to deal with the affordable housing to bring that into the project if that was, the powers that be had the will to do that. But if we don't preserve some of our architectural heritage, there's nothing left. I mean, at the end of the day, it'll be a whole new city. But that's the reason we're here for the Built Heritage Committee, is to preserve what we think is of cultural significance. And this building is not just, a very sort of ordinary building. It's important to its own and has a basis for that importance. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those comments. I don't see any other hands raised. I just wanted to echo some of the comments of some of my colleagues. I know that when I have planning applications before me, and if we have applicants who contact our offices, frankly, I know, and I imagine many of my other colleagues around this table are asking the applicant to consider affordable housing. But as Councillor Troster has noted, we don't have the tools, legislative or otherwise, to compel. So we have those very difficult conversations with applicants. I've had them many times where we've asked, where is the affordable housing? And unfortunately, obviously, council does not have the tools to impose that on private market developers. But I would agree that there's work being undertaken through some innovative tools, community improvement plans, and other tools that we have at the city. And we obviously encourage applicants to take advantage of those tools. I would also agree with Member Madigan that, I think we've been working hard on projects that ensure that there's adaptive reuse. And I think that's very important for the city to ensure that some of our architectural heritage is preserved, but ensuring that those spaces also accommodate different land use. And I think that the city has been on, frankly, some of the cutting edge of these types of developments. I think of the development on Nicholas that we're seeing, being built around the registry office. I think these elements are very important to the city in terms of retention of our cultural heritage, while ensuring that we respond to the need for more housing, the general need for more housing in the city. So I do appreciate the depth of this conversation, though. I think these are very serious issues that many of us around the table are trying to deal with. But I will be supporting the report as written before us today. Council Member Borns.
Could I just note that there are many, many churches in Centertown, most of which have diminishing congregations and which would be available for other uses, including Carleton, which has taken over a beautiful church on O'Connor Street, very close to, well, close enough to this property. Far more of those are worth saving than this one. And we do have an opportunity here where we could go as staff and say, will you give us 4 or 5 or 6 units in lieu of the heritage requirement? And that is an option that's available. Maybe it's only available until we come to council. Maybe it's only available because of the heritage zone, but it is available. And it is something that could be done.
Well, we appreciate those additional comments. I do know that staff has worked on this application as it's written and as it's before us. Member Quinn.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just a quick response to say, just to remind my colleague that it is not just the grand large, grand, beautiful, obvious buildings, historic buildings that are worth saving. It is often smaller, more vernacular, less ostentatious buildings that are important within our communities, that have meaning for neighborhoods, and are also a key component of our cultural heritage and deserve a similar attention as the grand and the beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So at this point, the report is before us. There are no other hands raised for comments. Is the report carried? Carried with dissent from Member Borns. So this report will be submitted to Ottawa City Council on June 25th, 2025 for its consideration. Our next item is designation of 119 Osgood Street under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. And I do believe that we have a technical amendment, so I will ask Vice Chair Plante to read that technical amendment in.
Whereas report number ACS 2025-PDB-RHU-0031 recommends the designation of 119 Osgood Street according to the Statement of Cultural Heritage Value attached to Document 5. And whereas the Statement of Cultural Heritage Value describes several exclusions that are not part of the designation, whereas the owner and the representative in a meeting with Heritage Planning staff on 4 June 2025 and through written comments provided on the 6th of June 2025 have expressed an interest in ensuring clarity on the excluded sections of the property. Therefore, be it resolved that Document 5 Statement of Cultural Heritage Value be replaced with the attached revised Statement of Cultural Heritage Value, amending exclusion from gymnasium in its entirety to rear wing built in 1980. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. And now we'll go to a presentation from staff.
Good morning. This report recommends that Council issue a notice of intention to designate 119 Osgood Street under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. And we can go to the next slide, please. The property at 119 Osgood Street is located on the north side of Osgood Street in between Nelson and Henderson Avenue in Ottawa's Sandy Hill neighborhood. The property contains a red brick school building, parking, and fenced yards. Next slide, please. The building at 119 Osgood Street was constructed in 1897 as Osgood Street School, an English language public school. The original building was designed by Edgar Louis Horwood in the Romanesque Revival style. The Ottawa Public School Board established the school in response to 19th century population growth in St. George's Ward. Osgood Street was the second public school built in the ward and is the only remaining 19th century public school in the area. By 1908, the rapid growth of the neighborhood and burgeoning population in the ward prompted the construction of a large addition. Upon completion, senior students from Waller Street School were moved here, and the classrooms were further expanded in 1918, and the school was filled to capacity. The school's population remained very large for many years. In 1939, the boys' vocational school moved from Cartier to here to Osgood, occupying 5 rooms, and the school also hosted overflow classes from the nearby French Catholic school, École Saint-Pierre. By 1978, English enrollment had substantially declined. 1979, the English school closed and reopened that fall as a French language public school, known today as École Franco-Jeunesse. Considered a sign of vitality of Ottawa's francophonie, École Franco-Jeunesse is Ottawa's first French language public elementary school. It represents non-denominational French language education, and the building holds significance in relation to minority rights. It yields information about French education in Ottawa and in Sandy Hill, and overall contributes to an understanding of Franco-Ontarian cultural life. Next slide, please. A rare 19th century urban public school in Ottawa, the 1897 school is an elaborate and monumentally styled example of Romanesque revival. As mentioned, the architect was Edgar Louis Horwood, and it's one of 3 schools designed by Horwood for the Ottawa Public School Board. So you might be familiar with them. The 3 Horwood schools are Muchmore, First Avenue, and then this property, École Franco-Jeunesse. The property plays an important role in defining, maintaining, and supporting the historic character of Sandy Hill, one of the older residential neighborhoods in Ottawa. Sandy Hill contains many 19th and 20th century red brick buildings alongside more recent developments. A well-known destination in Sandy Hill since 1897, the building at 119 is a local landmark. Its design, its distinct details add to its valuable presence in the streetscape. And with frontage on 3 streets, Osgood, Nelson, and Henderson, the property is a focal point. Following research and evaluation, staff determined that the property has cultural heritage value for design, associative, and contextual values. The evaluation found that the property meets 8 of 9 of the criteria for designation under Part 4 of the Heritage Act. And staff recommend designation of the property. I also want to mention that knowing the school currently is experiencing another surge in growth in their student enrollment, the board anticipates some expansion. And so staff have carefully considered the list of attributes in the statement. And just to note that the interior is excluded, the side yards are excluded, and that rear wing, the gymnasium built in the 1980s, that's also excluded from the designation. And next slide, please. And that concludes our staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. We do have a delegation from Xavier Bradbury Yost of the school board. And I believe that he is online. So we'll elevate and then proceed with the delegation for 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm actually here just as an attendee taking notes. I wasn't instructed to present anything as part of the delegation. Instead, I believe someone, I forgot her last name, Christine, I think, should be presenting on our behalf from Q9 Planning Associates. So I may be able to answer any questions, but other than that, I will leave it to Q9 Planning and Associates. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that. We did have Q9 planning listed on correspondence, but not as a delegation. But we thank you for being here and for providing that context. Noting that, I think we can move directly to questions to staff. Vice Chair Plante.
Yeah, more of a comment, I think. So I was at Franco Jeunesse yesterday. They had their end of year school party, and I ran actually into the former counselor whose children attend that school, and my son also went to that school. And I was just wondering, does this, obviously it's the outside facade, but I don't know if you've been on the inside. The inside is quite interesting too, with the arch doors that they have to some of the classrooms. So I was just wondering if you could just clarify that a bit.
Sure. So right now, as the report is written, we're not including any of the interior elements. Not to say they don't have value. They certainly do and would upon that further review. But at this time, that's not been part of our staff's recommendation.
And I know the Parents Committee, they have been fundraising for a new play structure. Will this designation stop them from installing a new play structure outside?
So the idea would be that an installation, if it's freestanding, we wouldn't, I don't know that we would even need a heritage permit for it. So
Okay.
it wouldn't impact any work happening in those yards at all. And that was one consideration we had when we met with the board representatives, as well as to ensure that there was room for growth, room for change on those side yards. If they were to propose installing it in front of the 1897 structure, we want to look at maybe the placement and the setback of it, but I don't think that's where they're looking to put it. I think it would be going on the side.
And my last question is, because when I did speak to some of the students about it, they were really curious. So I think we don't have to do it in June, but maybe in September, we could get staff to go and explain what heritage is to the kids and have them, understand. I've done budget consultations in schools. It's really cute. They always ask very interesting questions like, were you born in the 1900s? Which anyway, yeah, I think if we could put something together to educate the kids about the heritage, and even in Sandy Hill more broadly, that would be really helpful.
I think that's a really great idea. My daughter says I'm born in pioneer times. She's learning about 1892 in school, and I'm born in 1982, which she thinks is the same thing. Anyway.
Yeah, it's great when they refer to when we grew up as the olden times. Yeah.
Thank you, Vice Chair Plante. Yeah, I love it when I attend schools too, and I get to blow their minds by telling them I was born in the last century. Councillor Leeper.
Thanks. Just curious, was this land originally set aside for institutional use? This bears no bearing on my vote, but.
That's okay. What I understood mainly from the old Ottawa journals from the 1890s is that the way that the board Waller Street School was where everyone was going to school who in the area, and they needed more space. So I believe they bought 6 lots. And it wasn't clear to me if there were houses on them or not, but they bought 6 residential lots, likely cleared them and then built the school.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the location, I think, was tied to board in Sandy Hill. So it was very particular strategic choice. And I think the other piece was the population was moving east. So they wanted something a bit further east.
This was land that was originally Besserer's and that he subdivided?
I think it's by ward. We're thinking by ward, but very close to the Besserer estate. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Neither here nor there with respect to the designation, but.
Colonel By's estate was south of Laurier and Besserer was north of Laurier.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Madigan.
Thank you, Chair. When do you consider interiors as part of a destination? Is there a formal process to do the exterior and interiors, or is when someone signals there's something in the interior that's worth looking at and identifying?
I would say we don't have a rock solid process as to when we do or don't. We typically start with the exterior. And then if we're able to access the interior for site visits, that sort of thing, and there are elements that are identified either by the property owner or, by the counselor or whatever, we could look at them at that point. In this instance, we had done the work on the school, reached out to the school board, and we hadn't heard back from them for some time. So we had a bit of trouble getting in touch. So that's part of the reason that and as a school, obviously, we can't just walk in the door and go and look around. So if there was a desire to further evaluate the interior, that is something that could be undertaken. But I would also caution that I think part of the challenge of interiors, particularly for things like schools, is, that they need to grow and change, and we want to make sure that our designations are not too restrictive so that they don't allow for that, ability to pivot because there's a door or a wall or something in the way. So we typically focus on kind of very, I would say, high style interior elements, or interior elements that are very much tied to the reasons that the building is important.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't see any, Member Warrens.
I noticed you've excluded the addition, which makes sense. The side yards I'm worried about. Can you explain why you've excluded the side yards and what that means?
So when we were evaluating the property, one of the characteristics of Sandy Hill was the front yard setback. And so we did include the setback in the front and the front yard. But the side yards are a bit of an anomaly. There's not big open spaces like this in Sandy Hill. So part of my thought and our discussion was that they didn't quite fit into the neighborhood the same way, but also knowing that this building would need to expand, where could they expand to? And understanding that with other schools, like for example, another Horwood school, much more in the Glebe, they did an expansion a few years ago, and thinking, well, perhaps the side yards are not bringing the same value that the front is, and we're very open to leaving them out. But I do want to mention that we've kept those side walls in. So the 1908 addition, those side walls to the east and west, those are included. So the way, let's say you were to build an addition, the way it touches the sides would have to be sympathetic and very sensitive to the historic built fabric there. So we would need a heritage permit for that, let's say in the future, if the property is designated, and we would be able to manage that change as they look at their expansion plans and where a new built form could sit on the lot.
What about the side yards, like distinguishing between the side yards for the original building and the side yards for the additions? Would that make any sense?
Yeah, I think we would look at that. I know with just thinking of the much more example again, they did keep a little bit of a buffer in between. And so I think we'd be wanting to look at some kind of queue maybe. But without a proposal in front of us, I wouldn't want to say too much, but I think certainly that staff would be looking at that carefully.
It just seems to me, Mr. Chair, that the side yards are an important part of the view of the building, and keeping at least the side yards for the original building would make some sense. And still allow for a redevelopment to the back and, to the sides, but only to the sides, a certain element forward. You need to have some school grounds anyway. As you mentioned, a location for the play structure. Why can't it go, in the side yards or in the front yard even? But, I would suggest that we exclude the original building's side yards from the exclusion, if I can put it that way.
Vice Chair Plant.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick point on that. So they actually do have a second campus on Wilbrod. I don't know what the history is of that school there. I'm assuming that was a former school as well, that little location they have on Wilbrod. Okay, so they actually have a second school that they have, La Petite École, they call it, for like the 3, 4, 5s. And they are actually also looking to a third location for a daycare. It's wild. But anyways, they are very cognizant of all of these features, and their preference in this area is to go to other properties rather than renovate the one that they have, because they don't want to do portables. So it's it's not usual that you have a school with 3 campuses. I've never heard of that for a grade school, but that's sort of what they've chosen to do at the school board. And I support that decision. And if ever you want to go to La Petite École and see the littles, I will take you with me. It is the cutest thing you've ever seen.
Thank you so much, Member Madigan.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Brian about the side yards. I thought they were part of the inclusion. I hadn't read that in detail, all the exclusions. If it's possible to include them, it'd be great. Because it's part of the idea of viewing the building. And also, if you're using the building as a school, then you still have open space to your side of it. Thank you.
And just a question to staff, was there full consultation with the school board in terms of their interest in terms of the disposition, ultimate disposition of the property? I'm assuming if there's a report before us, there was some back and forth with staff and some level of approval in terms of where the school board would want to allocate its use of space.
I'll let Ms. Marshall comment on the consultation with the school board, but I'd like to make a comment at the end about the side yards.
Sure. So as mentioned in the notes in the motion, we did, staff met with several representatives of the school board as well as their consultant planner last week and had quite a good discussion on the impacts that a potential heritage designation would have on their operations and on the future planning of at the board level. And so that was very insightful for staff. And we did go through the attributes and we did discuss where hypothetically could a new volume, a built volume sit on the property. And so we did have that discussion and had some emails back and forth, which led to the motion previously on this item to just clarify the exclusion in the statement.
Appreciate that.
And I think just to emphasize that part of, I was just looking at an aerial photo again to remind myself of how big these yards are. I think there is a danger that I guess if committee's interested in extending sort of the side yards at the very front, like sort of just immediately adjacent to that original section, that may be reasonable. I am concerned about limiting the flexibility of the property for the property owner in the future if we designate both side yards in terms of allowing, again, it goes back to that idea that our heritage buildings need to have use and be well used. And this is a very well used heritage building. And I don't want to impede the further, and I think it's a well used heritage building that is also very tied to sort of the cultural heritage value of Sandy Hill in its use. So I would just caution committee that there isn't a lot of space there in terms of where they might put an addition. And I would be concerned about exempting the side yards or including the side yards entirely in a proposed designation.
Thank you for that. And of course, my approach usually is deference to staff. If there's a consultative process, especially with the school board, to ensure that we are accommodating both the use of the lands by the school board as well as the policy directives of the city through its heritage policies. So I would feel uncomfortable making changes at this point in terms of the report that's before us, noting that there had been obviously some consultation in terms of staff talking with the school board and vice versa in terms of what the future development requirements of the property would be. I don't see any of, Member Borns.
Well, I would just move that the application be amended to include the side yards for the original part of the building. So only the piece closest to, I guess it's Osgood.
On Osgood or on?
On Osgood.
Okay.
Could we see slides again, please?
If you look at the report, there is a spot that shows the original scope of the building, I believe.
And I will ask staff to bring up the
you look on
image
page
again
20.
for Member Quinn.
So if you look on page 20 of the report, it shows the original building and then the addition going on the back. And then I guess there's a subsequent addition further back. So it's only the part on the left that I would suggest we extend include the side yards.
So I'm assuming you're moving that motion formally now. Okay. And I know usually staff does draft the motion. So we're going to bring up the image firstly for Member Quinn's consideration, as well as others who are online. And at this time, we would also need to see a written draft of that motion. So maybe we can work with staff there. Oh. And so we'll just take,
We can help write something if you like.
yeah, that would be great. And I wanted to know if staff is amenable to what is being proposed by Member Bournes, or are you in support of this change?
We don't object to this change.
Okay. Okay.
Very diplomatic.
Yeah. So we are just awaiting the motion. And it's before us on the screen. I don't know if it's on your screen. Member Bournes, would you like to just read in your motion, your amending motion for the report? Okay, so it has been amended. Maybe I'll read it into the record. That document 5 be further amended to include the side yards in the designation, with document 5 to read as follows. Excluded from the designation are the interior of the building, the rear wing built in the 1980s, and the fence yards to the sides and rear. And
I believe in the 80s, it is incorrect that if you look at page 20, it shows, it's only the left part of the original building that I had intended to include the side yards of, not the full building, which is shown on the right-hand side.
okay, so we'll work with staff to make that adjustments. I see that Leslie is assisting. Yeah, yeah. So at this point, maybe we'll just take 5 minutes recess so that staff can bring together that motion, and then we'll be able to come back and vote on all the items as a complete package. Thank you. And we'll be resuming momentarily, just in a couple of minutes, as we obtain the updated motion from staff. Excellent. So we can resume with the meeting as we have the updated motion to be introduced by Member Bournes, and I can read the updated motion into the record that document 5 be further amended to include the side yards in the designation, with document 5 be amended on page 65 as follows to read: the designation includes the 1897, 1908, and 1918 exterior sections of the building, as well as the front and side yards of the 1897 section. So that.
Sorry, Chair, if I may, a point of order or privilege, whichever it is. I would love to see on screen what those comprise.
Okay.
I think Leslie knows exactly.
So staff too.
If the clerk's office could bring the slides up, we can hopefully point it out. But we may have to physically point it out. I don't have a pointer. What slide should it be? So if you could go to the aerial Geo Ottawa, I think, yeah, this one is good. Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to describe it?
Sure. So I think on either the illustrated footprint or in the aerial photo, you can see the section of the building that has a hipped roof. There's a gable and a hip there that are facing on Osgood. That built form to its left and right and in front of it would be included. There's chimneys. If you can see the marker of where the chimneys start, that's the beginning of the 1908 addition. So the side yards, like left and right of the chimneys, excluded, continue to be excluded. But in front of the chimneys towards Osgood
So
would
if you
be
follow,
included.
yeah, the line of the gray roof at the front on Osgood, you can sort of see a line. I'll see if I can point.
Okay. Thanks, Leslie.
Related to these as a sign. No, I'm coming with a pen. This section here, this is the line.
Okay, yep. So the side yards would be protected to that depth off of the, I think that's Osgood. Amazing. Okay, now I know what I'm voting on. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So we have multiple motions before us. Let's go by order of introduction, in a sense. Recent introduction. So on Member Bourne's motion, is that carried?
Carried.
Carried. The technical amendment, is that carried?
Carried.
Carried. And is the report as doubly amended adopted?
Carried.
Carried. Okay, thank you so much. So this report will be submitted to Ottawa City Council on June 25th, 2025 for its consideration. The next item is designation of the Wellesley Building, 1235 Wellington Street West, 120 Holland Avenue, under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and there is a presentation from staff.
Okay, good morning. So this report provides Heritage staff's recommendation to designate 1235 Wellington Street West, also known as 120 Holland Avenue under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, as staff have determined that the property meets 4 of the 9 criteria under Regulation 0906. And I want to just say for the committee today that I'm presenting really on behalf of my colleague Sarah Webby, who has since left our team, jetting off on a new adventure. But this report is really the result of her research and her work. And I think she might be listening. So hi, Sarah. If we go to the next slide. So the subject property is a 5-story mixed-use building on the northwest corner of the intersection of Wellington Street West and Holland Avenue. It's at the border of 2 neighborhoods, Wellington West and Hintonburg. And this building was constructed in 1955 as the Wesley Building, and it had commercial units on the ground floor with office space on the upper floors. On the next slide. So the Wesley Building was constructed during a period of post-war suburban growth and development, during a time of heightened demand for office and retail spaces outside of the downtown area. And that led to an increase in purpose-built commercial and office buildings in those surrounding neighborhoods, really to fulfill the needs of both the public and private sectors. So constructed in 1955 as a 2-story structure, the Wesley Building's original plans contemplated future additional height, and 3 extra floors were added in 1965 in response to that demand. The building is a rare Ottawa example of a mixed-use building constructed in the Art Moderne style. This is a subset of modernism, and it developed partly due to the Great Depression, gaining popularity in the 1930s as a simplified expression of the more extravagant Art Deco style. Art Moderne is not generally widely represented in Canada. It was only briefly popular prior to the development of the international style. But Art Moderne was frequently used by small business owners in Ontario, and it's often seen in commercial buildings. Here in Ottawa, the Wesley Building is one of few remaining examples of the style in the city, and the style's emphasis on simplicity and fluidity is achieved through horizontal elements, rounded corners, and smooth surfaces. And the Wesley Building features these typical elements of the style, including its rounded corner, flat roof, horizontal windows, steel detailing, and smooth exterior cladding of brick and tile. The Wesley Building was designed by prominent local architecture firm of Abra and Balhari, whose portfolio includes many modernist institutional and school buildings in Ottawa, as well as several modernist mid-century commercial and office buildings. While many of the firm's office buildings in particular have been substantially altered, the Wesley Building remains highly intact, despite having undergone an adaptive reuse in the 1990s to modify the office space to residential condominiums, and it continues to represent the architect's original vision. And if we go to the last slide, with its rounded corner, its recessed storefronts on the ground floor, the Wesley Building is physically and functionally linked to its location on a prominent corner on Wellington Street West at the intersection of Holland Avenue. This active location on one of Ottawa's key commercial corridors was well suited for a new mixed-use building when it was developed. And today the building continues to support the retail and commercial activities at this prominent junction. In terms of consultation, letters were sent to all of the property owners to advise of the potential designation. Staff also met with the condo board earlier this year to discuss the designation and answer questions about the potential, any potential implications. They raised some concerns at the time about some of the language in the statement, which resulted in some changes that's included in the report today. And just quickly to conclude, staff have determined that this property meets 4 of the 9 criteria for designation and are recommending that the notice of intention to designate be issued. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. We did receive some correspondence from the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada, as well as Heritage Ottawa, as well as three property owners at the location. We do have delegations, so we will start with Valhik Manukian for our first delegation.
Hello. Yes, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Vahik Manukian. I am the owner of Unit 4B in the building, one of the corner units, actually. I was the member of the board from 2011 to 2019. I was the president of the board from 2011 to 2015, whereby we repaired the bulging bricks at the corner section of the building, as well as we replaced the windows. I want to thank you for considering designating the building as a heritage building. I'm not alone in terms of looking forward for this designation. As you mentioned, at least I know one owner who has been in favor of this, and I have the permission of another owner to disclose the unit and the owner's name in terms of being in favor of the designation. I have studied the documents attached to the meeting, especially document 6, which in a sense it's opposing the designation. I have a few notes on that, if I may. So one of them is with respect to purpose-built mixed use. In my view, the point of heritage designation is not to capture what is typical today, rather what was atypical in 1960s and 1950s. It was the heritage designation is capturing the forward-looking nature of the building 70 years ago. In terms of other art modern style, the subsequent additions, the 3 stories, in fact, in 1965, in fact, they, I was prompted with something. In fact, it actually kept the original style of the building. Historic value, there's a mention that there are other buildings that are worthy of heritage building compared to ours. The response doesn't list any items, so I cannot compare that. But I don't think the point of designation is when the building was built, rather to capture its impact in the neighborhood and the community. And my last comment with respect to document 6 is it's not a landmark. In my understanding, a landmark is, let's say, the physical attributes, the unique physical attributes of a geographical location that sets it apart from its surrounding. It marks the land. It's a landmark. The name can change. The name will change. Sometimes the same physical attributes will be called with different names, but it refers to the same thing. I recall in 2010s, 2015, 2016, and prior to that, there was a website that actually, which was representing the business interest of the community, which was using the picture of our building as its connection to our community. It was using it as a landmark in its way. Those are my points with respect to document 6. Other than that, I mean, speaking with the like-minded owners, I'm not exaggerating to say we are looking at this in terms of a civic duty to preserve what we have and pass it to the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your delegation and for taking time to be with us this morning. I don't see any specific questions for you. So once again, thank you so much for participating in this process and for your pride in your home. We really appreciate that. The next registered delegate is Doug Michaelides.
Thank you, Chair King. My name is Doug Michaelides. I too am a condominium apartment owner at 120 Holland, and I'm currently a member of the board. But I'm speaking on behalf of myself personally as an owner. As was pointed out in the report, this building is a condominium residential conversion. There are 16 owned residential units, and there's an additional owner of 9 commercial units that exist on the ground floor. This is the first Built Heritage Committee meeting I've attended, and it's been an education, and I'd just like to express my appreciation for the care and thoughtfulness that's been demonstrated by the members of the committee. And I also want to recognize the staff, Mackenzie and Sarah in particular, with their openness and consultation leading up to the report. It was greatly appreciated. At one point during these deliberations, Chair King mentioned the importance of context during these deliberations. So I thought it would be valuable to provide some context from at least one owner's perspective, in particular emphasizing the burden that's placed on owners that comes with designation. And I'm sure this is something that you've all heard before, but it's worth mentioning again in this case. So in this case, while there would potentially be some additional financial burden to owners to maintain the exterior of the building, the main burden is in time and effort on the volunteers who form the board of directors. Any type of maintenance project for a building that only has 16 owners is already a significant effort. And so what designation would do would add the need to consult with the city and work through the funding processes and that kind of thing to what's already a bit of a fraught process for maintaining the building. And of course, maintaining the building and its attractiveness and original condition is the priority of the board. So I'd like the committee to consider the trade-off that's involved here in recommending designation for what is, as I think the report kind of demonstrates, a borderline case. The building was built in its present form as recently as 1965. It meets just 4 of the 9 criteria. And I like that considered to be traded off against the burden that's being placed on owners. In short, I don't believe the building requires protection at this time. And in fact, designation would place, ironically, an obstacle in front of the group of owners in our ongoing efforts to maintain the exterior appearance of the building, as my fellow resident has already mentioned. So I don't support the recommendation to designate the property at this time, but I think it's something that should perhaps be considered in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time, your consideration, and your delegation. It's much appreciated. I don't see any questions for you from committee, so thank you so much for being with us this morning. Questions to staff? Oh, sorry. Sorry, I was nearly jumping the gun, and Heritage Ottawa, of course, is unforgettable. So I should not have forgotten Linda Hode, who also will delegate before us this morning. Apologies, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Actually, I'm not really here to speak on behalf of Heritage Ottawa. You have the official submission from Heritage Ottawa. I'm speaking as a former owner of one of the units in fact, one of the original owners of the of 120 Holland Avenue, as it was known to me as a resident. And actually, I think even as a citizen of the area, I just wanted to I always thought that the building should be designated, but I hesitated to bring it up as I was an owner, because we had the original 1950 and 1960 windows, which are not very efficient. And I knew that if we got a heritage designation, there would be considerable more difficulty and more complications in terms of doing window replacement. They managed to replace the windows just as I was selling my unit, which made it more difficult to sell. But anyway, I do think that it is an excellent example of adaptive reuse. The building is very solid. Now that it has been upgraded, it will, I think, go on for many years. I wanted also to mention that I was told by the owner of Home Hardware, sort of kitty corner across from 120 Holland Avenue, that his father, when he built that store, it's a two-story store, his building too is, the foundation will support a higher building. I don't know whether it's hearsay, but he told me that, and I assume that he knows because it was his father who built the building. The other thing I wanted to mention was that I do consider it a landmark. As somebody who moved to Ottawa in the early 1970s and lived in that area a little bit here and there over the years, I have always considered it a landmark, and I guess that's a personal opinion. So I just thought that I would add this personal note to what I think is a very important designation. It's a wonderful building, and it's well known to I think anyone who's lived in the West End, and I suspect many people who have come from further afar. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councillor Leeper has a question for you.
Thank you, Linda, and I'm grateful for the early tour we got of your converted unit. It's a beautiful building inside as well as outside. We've had several meetings in your unit over the years. So, and I'm fully in favor of designating this. Have you had a chance to take a look at the board's letter to the committee with respect to their opposition to this?
No, I didn't see that because it wasn't submitted as part of the report. What the document I saw was from the first speaker, a former neighbor of mine, Vahik Manukian, I think, and he wasn't speaking on behalf of the board at that point, I don't. Anyway, I do understand that, it is because I was a member of the board. So I do know that when you have only 16 units, there is a considerable volunteer commitment involved in order to do the maintenance and just to make the decisions that a board of directors has to make. However, it's some of the work that would need to be done no matter what. And I know from talking with staff that they move very quickly on requests for permits, heritage permits. They have a lot of experience, and they can offer good advice in some cases in terms of where do you find these skilled and experienced work people to do the work that's required. So there's another trade-off there. Yes, it's a little bit more complicated, but you do have access to some information that you might not otherwise have.
It strikes me that the list of heritage character attributes is not one that's going to impose any particularly onerous requirements on the owner with respect to day-to-day maintenance.
I wouldn't think so because it's mostly exterior materials. I mean, they've already replaced the windows, which I knew was going to be a tricky thing in terms of the heritage character of the building. So they've got the new windows, so they will presumably not need too much work for a number of years. The brick, there's some I don't remember the names. There's sort of tiles and other kinds of cladding on the exterior of the building on the ground floor. And we did have some trouble at one point trying to replace some of the exterior steps, which were forgotten what it is. Looks like marble, but it's not. Terrazzo, yes. It's very hard to find anyone to replace your terrazzo. So if you have, maybe, as I say, you see, we would have been able to consult with people who know who replaces or repairs terrazzo, because it was very difficult. Yeah, as I say, the materials are not complicated on that building. We don't have elaborate, moldings and stone, sandstone that's fading away or melting away. It's pretty standard materials, so I'm hopeful.
Okay. Doug spoke to waiting to designate it, and I'm just wondering, you've been with Heritage Ottawa for a very long time. What happens when we wait to designate something until it is under threat?
Well, we have a good chance of losing it. And at the moment, with the changes to the Ontario Heritage Act, it's, I guess, it was on the register, so it would drop off the register, and it could not be re-registered or, I guess, it could be nominated for designation, I guess, within 5 years. But I don't see any reason to put it off. Just the fact that it's getting older isn't going to make it more significant.
Thank you very much. And I love your description of it as a landmark. Probably 40 years ago, I used to go Christmas shopping there. I'd take the bus to Wellington Village from the various suburbs and go to Laura Secord and buy chocolate
Laura Secord?
for Christmas. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your delegation, the unforgettable Mrs. Hode. And questions to staff. Member Quinn.
Thank you, Chair. I don't really have a question, just a comment to say that I will be absolutely supporting the designation of this building. And when I was growing up, it was known as the Laura Secord Building. And I have also used it as a landmark when giving directions, and people know straight away what I'm talking about. So very recognizable and a rare example of an important architectural style in the city. So I was very pleased to see this building on the Part 4 designation list. So I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Member Madigan.
Thank you, Chair. Not really a question, but just a comment in sort of same vein of other comments is, I think there was a question about the aspect. This is a landmark building. I think it is a landmark building. When I first came to Ottawa, before I got into architecture, just sort of drive around the city. That's one of those buildings that sort of stuck my mind. It's a little different. I sort of placed me where I am in that part of the city. So a landmark doesn't have to be some elaborate building. It could be something that's just, it literally is a landmark. You know, you are in that part of the city. So I totally agree with that aspect of it being a landmark. I think the building is also significant in two other ways. One, it shows that you can keep reusing your existing buildings after the initial design and use. I think that's a very important example to show and sort of the pressures on existing buildings. It's not just to knock it down and replace it with a new building. You can adapt the existing buildings. And secondly, it also shows that you can adapt a building and extend it by keeping to the original architectural aesthetic of the building and keep it as an integral sort of unit. I think one is sometimes we sort of look at buildings that have been added to over time, but not in a sympathetic ways. And we then look at, well, those additions are not sympathetic, those come away, or it's justified knocking the whole building down, which has come in as sort of substantiation from people going counter to designations that the building is no longer significant, it's lost its integrity. I think this is a good example where the building has been extended and has been renovated over time and adapted, and it still maintains its overall integrity. So I think it's a very important example, and that's another reason why we should maintain it and designate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't see any other hands raised. So just briefly, I also wanted to echo those great comments by my colleagues. This is definitely a landmark building. We heard from Member Madigan about sympathetic additions really contributing to good adaptive reuse. The building also represents one of Ottawa's few remaining examples of art modern architecture, a style that briefly flourished in the post-Depression era. And from what we've heard as well in terms of delegations, it sounds like maintenance won't be overly onerous for the present owners. And I'm also very pleased that staff really worked collaboratively with property owners to address concerns in the report while maintaining heritage protection. So I think it's an excellent report, and I will be supporting it, hopefully with a good number of my colleagues. Is this report carried? Carried. Thank you so much. So this report will be submitted to City Council on June 25th, 2025 for its consideration. We've come to the end of substantive items. There are no in-camera items. Are there any notices of motion? Seeing none, are there any inquiries? Seeing none, there is no other business to date. On adjournment, we're adjourned. Thank you so much. So the next meeting of the Built Heritage Committee will be Tuesday, July 8th, 2025. Thank you so much, everybody.